Welcome to Potentials. This is Leija, and today we have a very special guest, and he's from the UK, and his name is Mark Leib. Or am I saying that right? Is it Leib or
You
Leib?
are,
Oh,
Leib.
I am.
Yeah, it used to be live, but it got changed about 100 years ago. But yeah,
That's what I thought. Yes,
yep,
and
both
it,
spotted.
thank you. So, Mark is the founder of Sacred Design Studio, a unique consultancy specializing in high frequency, nature based environments that optimize healing, harmony, and spiritual connection. The studio creates bespoke sanctuaries, holistic architecture, and regenerative communities that are deeply connected to the Earth's biofield and that contribute towards the raising of global consciousness. That's awesome. Mark is an expert in esoteric design science, sacred geometry, sorry, I know I was going to mess up, geobiology, and biophilic design, and is the only certified practitioner of the ancient European tradition of harmonic building in the UK. That's amazing. He is
Mhm.
engaged in ongoing bioenergy research, gives presentations, leads workshops, and offers training courses. Mark is a director of Earthlight, a community medicine garden and apothecary in the southwest of England, and is a co-founder of Frequency Village, an international changemaker ecosystem based in the Azores. To enable homeowners to have access to the energy balancing and analysis services of the studio, Mark has created an exclusive online service, Home to Sanctuary. And I'm going to be including this in the description, but his website is markleib.com and markleib.com Home to Sanctuary, which I will provide in the description because there's other things in there. So thank you for
Yep.
coming on my show. I am so excited to
Thank
have
you.
you.
Thank you for having me. It's been a while since we've spoken because I've not. Well, maybe we can tell people how we met. We're part of a very special online group, and I think it was last February. So it's just over a year that I joined. I don't know when you joined. I
It
think it was
was
February last year.
they started the group, and Dave actually started the group in um April 1st was the first date that we actually became the group. But before that we were having those calls, and they were
Mhm.
called the think tank calls, remember? And
Mhm.
those started I think around January. So yes.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I've not been on for a while. The studio's kept me very busy. I think I just jumped back on last week. But yeah, it's a very special, very unique group.
Absolutely. And I'm very honored to be a part of it. And it is like, as you said, the way we met. And so I always was curious about what you do, and you mentioned it in the group, and I was always fascinated with that because it's just so unique. I don't know anybody who does what you do, so or have heard of it even. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
So would you like to
there.
tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah, well, yeah, I'd love to. So, yeah, there's not many of us. There's very
Mm.
few. I've been doing design for about 30 years, and I'm trained as an interior architect. So I design hotels and houses and
Wow.
shopping malls and everything. And then about 15 years ago, my whole world changed when I was doing a very advanced form of qigong. So some of your listeners may know what qigong is, like
Yes.
pranayama, like Taoist breathing and energy exercises. And I was doing it part of a advanced martial arts training, and it was designed to supercharge my Tai Chi.
Yes.
And it actually opened up my brain. I literally
Mm.
changed overnight. It was quite profound. And I just started realizing or becoming aware, the awareness changed, that there was so much more. I won't say it's an awakening, but it was such an opening. And I just began like a 2, 3 year journey of just starting to read dozens of topics that I'd never been interested in before, completely new.
Yes.
Reading this crazy stuff. I mean, like I failed like science at school, and now all of a sudden I was reading this stuff, going, why am I
Yes.
looking at this stuff? And at the end of this period, I sort of realized that there was another way that I could design. I realized
Mm.
that I could actually engage with the vital energy that I'd engaged with in my body to change and transform myself. I could meld that and connect that with my passion, which was designing and creating and making beautiful places that people can use. And then I spent maybe another year trying to find the right way to do that. I looked at everything that was available. Then I saw a guy. I read one article online, and I was like, "That's it. That's the guy." And I spent a year trying to find him. He didn't have a website, and
Wow.
I was actually in Australia at the time, and I came back to the UK, and finally I got him to come over from France, and he's basically like essentially like the grandmaster of equivalent of
Mm.
the European tradition. So it's some of your listeners may be familiar with feng shui, which is the
Yes.
Chinese system of balancing spaces. Essentially, all cultures had all ancient cultures had these traditional ways of understanding and feeling energy and recognizing they could make their environments better. And in India, it's called Vastu Shastra. And in Europe, there was Celtic tradition, were working with the land and energies for millennia in the same way that the Aboriginal cultures were or the Native American cultures were. And in the Electroculture tradition, they were building stone circles and lots of standing stones and lots of structures in the same way that there were medicine wheels and other structures in Native America or North America or in South America, the pyramids. All these ancient cultures were all working with the land and energy and stone. And I discovered that in Europe, there was still one tradition that held that knowledge. It's a very special tradition. And what happened is that there was one group of builders that for 1,000 years were building temples, essentially inherited an incredible body of knowledge that came from the Middle East, from the Arabian tradition. And that body of knowledge, of the most advanced understanding of working with energy and architecture, was brought back after the Crusades. We're talking like 11th century. Because prior to that, a lot of the vast amounts of the knowledge, the higher level knowledge of mathematics, geometry, sound, grammar, literature, had basically been wiped out. In the Library of Alexandria, like the greatest storehouse of knowledge, was burnt down like twice, I think. And
Mm.
then this left this energy, this vacuum of knowledge in Europe, where the church maintained this vigorous hold on the most advanced
Yes.
knowledge and didn't let it be disseminated. And
Right.
then they were controlling sound frequencies and access to all written knowledge. And what happened was the Crusaders came back, and they brought with them a lot of this knowledge that they'd learned from the Arabic traditions. And
Yeah.
there was schools set up in Cordoba and Seville and Granada in southern Spain, and then they did translations, and this then filtered into the Celtic tradition that had been building these structures for millennia. And there was a fusing of the two traditions, and then from that they were then able to build the Gothic art, the Arabic arch, then informed the Gothic arch, and the Gothic arch was this new piece of technology that allowed them to build massive cathedrals. So this new format, this color coming, the sun's coming from over there, and
Oh, that's so
can you
cool.
say?
Oh,
Yeah, we have
yeah. It's like a rainbow.
we
Oh,
have a
that's so
prism.
awesome.
The sun's setting over there, and then
Oh, that's so,
we have a prism hanging in the window.
wow, you're being touched.
Well, just as I'm talking about cathedrals, where part of the science,
Yes.
just as I'm talking about the cathedrals, where part of the science was to basically modulate frequencies. So these structures, whatever,
Amazing.
the great
It's going
synchronicity.
right across you right now. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. There we go. There we are. So essentially, the cathedrals then became these like the highest form of architecture, places where people will come into, where sound was sound. The structures were harmonic, they're made with harmonic dimensions. The buildings were made with musical dimensions. They recognized the earth energies. They would have huge sound organs. People would sing. and the whole structures became modulated, vibrating chambers, and even the light coming in was, as you can see in my hands, even the light coming in was 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 able to be modified. There was about 100-year period where a particular frequency of glass in some of the cathedrals was an alchemical glass, and it had high spin metamaterials in there that was able to then create modulating effects on consciousness through the light. But then that was came from Arabic alchemy. And so my tradition were the guys that would have been ladies, would have been guys at that time that built these cathedrals. They had all this knowledge, and they were the first architects. They also then were the surveyors of the land. They would do the design, and they would instruct the masons to build the structures. And the masons were the guys who then cut stone, who became the Freemasons because they were free to work anywhere. That's where we get the name Freemason from.
Okay, interesting.
And so you had this extremely advanced tradition that was then building these structures for millennia, and utilizing really advanced mathematics, geometry, understanding of the earth energies, and to be able to construct these edifices. For example, like to work out, to understand, to acquire the correct measurements. So rather than just saying using the foot, we would use measures that are location specific. So we're using measures that are harmonics. So you're designing with frequencies based on the location, and to achieve or to create those frequencies, you have to observe the sun moving around a place. So let's say I've got a stick here. Let's say there's a stick there. You observe the sun moving around for a year, and then you mark out the equinoxes and the solstices. And if it's cloudy on the summer solstice, you've got to wait another year because you need the shadow. Yeah, so sometimes it take years.
I was gonna say, what would the time period be here from when they started doing this? When did they begin doing this kind of work in Europe?
You're talking, well, there was the high period, big Gothic period. You're talking 10th, 11th, 12th century moving forwards, and then you had 500, 600, 700 years of building. Some of these structures would take 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years to build, massive bits of stone.
Yes.
Huge undertakings. Like the last big one was the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona by Antoni Gaudi. And and it didn't finish. And actually Gaudi was trained in my tradition. So he was like this sort of pious architect, who lived, it was like a monk, and knew all of that. And again, it was, it didn't get finished. It's this incredible story. If any of your listeners have not been, and you're next time in Europe, make that place like your first like visit. It's like this, it's like a space station. It's like, it's literally like this incredible like ET like city that's been dropped in the middle of Barcelona. It's insane.
Yeah, it's totally different than anything else. It's so unique.
Have you been?
I haven't been there. I've seen so many. I've Google Earthed it, and did the virtual tour. I know it's not the same. I want to feel the frequency. I want to feel the vibration of that being in that space.
Yeah.
It must be incredible.
Yeah, it is amazing. So essentially, the tradition almost died out. By about 100 years ago, they had sort of stopped building, and then by the 60s they hadn't built much for a long time, and the knowledge was held within a tradition called a compagnon, so basically or a guild. So in France there are these very formally organized guilds of artisans, and they're called the compagnons du tour, which means that the companions of, like, the Tour de France. Tour means to go around. And then they would hold all of their knowledge, and all of their trade secrets very carefully. And this alchemical design knowledge, which came from the Arabic builders, was ended up being held within the tradition of the carpenter's tradition. I'm not sure how it got there. And then the Grand Master in the 60s said, okay, right, no, we don't need to be secret anymore. And he said, all right, we're going to start publicly sharing what we knew, what we know. And there was death threats and these things, and it took some decades to come through. And then there's been a succession of teachers, my teacher and his teachers, and who have then brought together. They went around all of Europe and brought together all the existing knowledge of the builders and looked at ancient structures. They looked at the methodology, which is quite advanced geometry and mathematical process. And one of the masters was a engineer at CERN.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yes. In Sweden
and yeah,
or Switzerland.
Switzerland.
Burn
Yeah,
Switzerland.
and look,
BERN.
here's the frequency on my face. Crazy, huh? And
Yeah, I know.
um,
It's
and
wild.
he then basically advanced knowledge and enabled us to be able to do the calculations without having to wait a year or more for the sun. And then more research has been done, and now it's been taught publicly. But very few people really study because it takes so long. There's a lot of essentially we're working with the earth energies as well as also working with geometry and maths. And
Yeah.
so like, I'm coming from a design point of view. Then it was my work was then to be able to really, for me, my personal journey was then to be able to start to feel the energies, because it's so much about understanding the energies in the land and recognizing those flows and the living earth. And then you've got all this geometry, maths, and most people that come to this work really are just sort of working very intuitively. They're sort of dowsing, they're feeling, and they're really connected to the living planet, and the waters or the elementals. And that's part of
Yes.
it. But then the sort of the idea that you can then use mathematics and geometry to create energetic effects to change consciousness and life force is really like, it doesn't really fit. It's a bit strange, that normally that math and geometry are these abstract things on paper. They're not living. But when we work, we're able to build geometry on the ground, and then it creates energy effects, and you can feel it. It's
Well, you're
quite a
talking
strange thing.
about sacred geometry too, and that sacred geometry is like a whole thing unto itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it is sacred. It is, and my
Like
system is
this,
a
for
like that.
example.
That's it. That's
Right.
it. Yeah, that's it. So
Mm.
my system is a very specialist sub system of sacred geometry, really, and sacred being anything that's to do with life. So sacred is not religious. Sacred is that all of
Yes.
life is precious, and
Mm.
that really there's a divine power behind everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then so essentially all the forces of planets, the planets and the Earth come together, and we build that. So essentially, like the art is a bit like creating like a horoscope. So everyone's familiar
Mm.
with a horoscope. Essentially, the horoscope is a chart, which if you look at a horoscope and it shows, you see the planets and all the lines, the
The
connections between
connections.
the connections. Yeah. So essentially what happens is that the angles, the geometries between the planets, it's those angular relationships which define the qualities of who you are, your personality. I'm a Leo, and I'm different. Sagittarius is different because of this, but also the
I'm an
actual day that I'm
Aquarius.
born. Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure. I don't know much about the
Aquarius is our kind of weird.
okay.
We're rebels and we're
Fantastic,
pioneers and we think outside the
fantastic.
box and we're forward thinkers, like we avant-garde kind of. Yeah.
And you do cool podcasts about technology and nature. Yeah, great science.
Yes.
Um,
Anything
yeah,
fringe.
yeah. And so the essentially the art was able to work at a planetary level or a location level in the same way that horoscope works for a personal level. Yeah. And then when you take the information comes in the form of a mandala after it's been mapped. You build it, and then you get all these amazing energy effects, and then you can do really cool stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe should we share it all,
Yes.
and then I
Yes.
can talk through it. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
so what I've got is I've got a bit of a presentation, and I'll share which has some of the recent projects in, and people can see rather than me just talking about it.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Cool.
I love the visuals. I know my
Yeah.
audience does too.
Wow. Are we full screen already?
Yes, that was
That's
awesome.
good.
Woo,
That's
some
good.
magic.
It worked. It worked. It worked for the first time. Okay, um, so in my work, I do a number of things. I look at the projects and
Mm.
understand what people want, and then I do some unusual things like we also work with the Akashic record to
Oh,
understand
nice.
things at a very Akashic, very deep level. That
Wow.
informs the work, and then we work out what work needs to be done. Um, then I would then go and survey the land, understand the energies,
Hmm.
and if there's things out of balance, we could fix those. Then I do the
Cool.
design work, and we work out, we go, okay, this is what we're going to design, and then I'd go there and I build it on my own, or I'd work with architects. So that's sort of pretty much the process. So I'm just going to sort of go through some of the projects. This project very very close to me physically. It's like
I love this.
over there. This is a project I'm involved in. This is called Earthlight. This is a 1 acre herb garden and apothecary created by my partner. And it's a community project where we grow herbs, and we have we disseminate information, and people learn about herbs and healing, about health
Yes.
sovereignty, and it's a medicine garden, and we built a medicine wheel. So
That's so
this is it.
awesome.
This is a medicine wheel. So pretty much
Wow.
a medicine wheel comes from the North American Indian tradition, Native American tradition, but the medicine wheel is identical to a Celtic cross. If any of your listeners don't know what that is, essentially it's a circle with a
Hmm.
cross in the middle. So in the Native American tradition, it's placed on the ground, but in the and the Celtic tradition, it's sort of vertical, it's on a post. So it's
Interesting.
the Celtic version of the Christian cross, but then it's referring back to the much older tradition. So here you can see it here,
Mm.
and we have so there's that cross with a display design, and then around it there are these circles of the wheel, and because it's got
Mm.
4 sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we grow herbs in them, and the herbs have been chosen to relate to the directions and the qualities of the herbs, and then
Yeah.
and the elemental qualities of the herbs. And then we have a grid of stones around them, these bigger stones, and it's that grid of stones that really gives it its power. And then we do medicine work, and we do rituals and group work and community
Wow.
things, and yeah, lots of amazing things. So this is a fully active structure. We have people come, they stand in the center. There's a vortex in the middle. People have been able
Yes.
to hear clairaudiently, open clairaudience to messages from the earth.
It's kind of like a
We had
portal, right?
it is, yeah, not kind of, yeah, yeah, it is, yeah, totally, yeah.
Yes.
There's I think well, you'll see another one, a bigger one in later in the presentation, where there's I've you can see the energy line. Essentially, there's interestingly, that where I've got the photo here, it's circular. There's actually a big energy dome over the top. There's
Mm.
through the middle, there's a very strong vortex, one going up,
Yeah.
one going down. So you're taking all of the structures, you're elevated up, but also you pull down. And all the work is about creating a connection between heaven and earth. This was the
Right.
classical term. You make the space that's really connected.
So it kind of
Um,
causes like a Kundalini effect when you stand on it,
yeah, yeah. The,
right?
the center is located on a crossing of earth energies, and when you stand on that, you feel that's going up. So I choose a very special place, and
Mm.
then the geometry is put on the top, and the geometry is the information from the planets. So I'm connecting the information of the planets with the earth energies, and they come together. So heaven
Mm.
and earth are physically connected, and it's the
Yeah.
alchemical connection that brings it together. And then what happens? Something really special occurs. Is that once that happens, that central vortex then is recognized by the ecosystem as being conscious, as being alive. The trees around it create new energy lines, and they go, there's this new tree energies there. You're part of us because it's made from the music of the land. So each of these, the dimensions between these stones, so one there, each of the dimensions are frequencies. And together, these harmonics are from the land itself. And so what we do is when we build, we turn on those frequencies, and the land goes, you've turned on my own stuff, my own music. So we then give back the land's own frequencies as its own medicine. So it's naturally accepted. And then the trees, like let's say this tree here, then goes, it picks up on this and it's connecting to it. So it really then becomes the very definition of what is biological architecture, because this whole structure is alive with the etheric energy body. It has its own energy body that's completely resonant with the landscape.
We're sort of talking about wave propagation and phase conjugation and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Where the structure is in perfect phase lock with the vibrational frequency of its location.
Absolutely. That is beautiful. I would love to see this everywhere, all over the
Well,
place.
well, this is part of the work. This is like, like when we talked about raising global consciousness, the more of these places we can build, the more we can raise that vibration. So there were
Absolutely.
there were tens of thousands of medicine wheels in North America at one point, and the medicine wheels modulated the energetic balance of the land. And then, when they were taken away, that modulating structure basically just disappeared and the land went out of balance. And so those structures, it happened in Europe as well. The farmers would tear down the stones and then they'd use the stones for sort of construction. And those balancing these structures would go away. For example, like you see this stone here, it's not a particularly big one. There are some in France, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 meters high. They're able to draw in magnetic monopole infrared radiation for the sun, plus also attract lightning strikes. So all of this electromagnetic and gamma level information is then sent down into the land, and it makes it more vital, and things grow better. If you take those away, you haven't got the balancing impact, and so the land then doesn't have this additional help to become fertile. And then you take those structures away, and then you stop doing rituals on the land. You stop then having communities coming into resonance with the land. So the elemental kingdoms, which are the non-physical consciousness of the planet, which are then working at a quantum level to allow all the plants and the crops to grow and to keep the soil fertile. When you stop doing rituals and honoring them, they move away. And then you then start to put fertilizers and the chemicals and all these non-natural, non-native frequencies into the land. And then you wonder why the landscape dies.
Yes, exactly. So, and this is probably like Stonehenge might have been something like that, right? Where it was doing the same kind of energy kind of thing.
Correct.
So,
Correct. Yeah, that's it. So they all those stone structures did those things, and then some of the structures then would be calendars. They would look at understanding places to understand time and ritual places. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's cool.
So this is a project I'm working on at the moment. This is 24 acres in Hampshire, and then I'm looking at putting sort of a grid across all the land, essentially applying the frequency to all of the land. This is like a healing all the land. And so if some of your listeners might know about what orgone energy is, some people may have like these devices. Yeah. Probably a lot of people do. Essentially, Wilhelm Reich discovered orgone, and then a guy called Don Croft worked out how to create that frequency. Essentially, the geometry for my tradition we're using geometry to be able to do the same thing at a landscape level rather than something a small device. And so these grids, or what we saw before here, this grid around this circle, are basically grounding the information from the planets and connected them with the land. And what happens is that when you work with the energy of the sun, and you have these grids, what happens is that you then bring in the maximum yang energy of the year, which is the summer solstice, and you lock it in, you lock it into the land. And that yang, that summer solstice energy is that orgone vitality, is that bluish light energy, and then you put it into the land. So when you if the land is out of balance, you build the grid, the land basically gets rebalanced, it gets vitalized. And so that's what this piece of work is. And then we look at maybe putting a standing stone in. This is going to do a job to be able to release geoelectric current because there's too much electricity there. And then in the top corner here, we may put a stone circle in for ritual. So this shows how the different elements can work. This is actually a place where there's horses. This is a healing center for horses.
Oh, wow.
This is another wheel that I made last year in Devon, about 2 hours from here. This is a big circle, and this is the summer solstice, and the sun. This is the sun. This is the line looking up to the summer solstice. So this is a big circle with big stones. These stones here, they've got granite. So they're granite. So granite has got quartz, and so quartz silica, basically you have a high quartz silica content. It's the piezoelectric effect that creates that charge. So on the orgone devices work because of the same effect. Basically, the crystal is being squeezed within the matrix, and this is replicating what you get from granite, which is where the stone basically pressurizes the quartz to create a weak charge. And so then you have a high quartz stone, you've basically got large crystals that can then add to the vibrational quality of your structure.
How will this counteract things like, I don't know, I'm assuming you have chemtrails in England too. When they try to do things like that, does this counteract that in any way?
It does a little bit. I'm going to be doing testing on, actually interesting, sir. I'm going to be doing testing on our world this year. The orgonite devices, we're actually looking at those as well. The chem busters, basically the copper tubes. They're very specific directed structures to be able to do that, and
Awesome.
they will go up and they'll do that. These structures work on the land, out that way onto the land. And for example, here, this structure is then working to balance all of the surrounding landscape. We'll do several kilometers around. So these will have an effect upon all of the atmosphere. But in terms of clouds, because it's a flat structure and it hasn't got that directional tubular design. Essentially, what's happening I've got a tube here. So you see this copper tube. If this was an orgone device, this is then going to basically send. Well, actually, what happens in orgone devices, it actually draws in a cloud busting device. Basically, works to draw in a lower resonance orgone energy from the sky down into the higher resonance orgone, which is in the base, and that causes the clouds to dissipate. It doesn't go the other way. It doesn't send anything out.
Right.
So that's doing that job. You can see here in the this large standing stone there. This was I said before. This is the large standing stones will then work to heal the land in that way. So when these were created, they weren't chemtrails, so they didn't need that technology. So now we have, if you have a chembuster, which is like 6 foot high copper tube, essentially it is the inverse, the opposite of the standing stones, which is designed to draw in solar and gamma radiation and an EM, and to infuse that quality into the land to make the land better. So, for example, if you have an enclosure, you have your standing stones drawing in the high frequency sunlight, vibration with the sunlight, and if you then have a space where you've got trees and water, the opposite level of or environmental energy will be attracted to that space as you have different enclosures. So yeah, so it's interesting you say that. I'm actually going to do some testing this year. We can then look to see what's the best combinations for people, because we want to be able to clear in the skies, and also we want to be vitalizing the earth as well. So that's, yeah, very intuitive. Actually, that's going to be my major bit of research for the year.
Awesome. That's great to hear.
This is a farm in Cornwall where we can see the grid here, where we're able to use the designs to be able to enhance crop growth. This is a labyrinth. Most people probably know what a labyrinth is, and when you apply the frequencies of the place, the music of the land we talked about, when you build around it, something super special happens here. You can see here it's the spleens, liver, stomach, liver, bladder, essentially in the lower half of the labyrinth. So across down here, when you walk it, it becomes a way to actually clean the organ systems of the Chinese meridians.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah, it become a healing device. So one stands in the middle, and they have a dowsing rod, and then someone walks along, and you stand, and then dowsing rod moves after about 20-30 seconds, and then you move on to the next one. And so what happens is that the rod recognizes how long you should stand there, and you go move on. So you actually get a full equivalent to like an acupuncture session. And so
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. This is some work in Andalusia where we're really looking at a large garden. This is then looking at how different structures could be placed. So this is really thinking about the flow and energy before we would then decide, okay, what would go here, what would go there. So this is like a planning way of looking at this land. This is actually a very dry land. This is a whole new garden this is going to be a Sufi garden like a different spaces for meditation. So Sufi meditation garden, a very exciting project. The design work can be applied to furniture and interiors and beds. So this is some design work for the healing retreat, and I can use the music, the frequencies to design beds. So on the right you can see a bed. And what happens is that I could design a bed, and it has been wood. So big tip for everyone: if you're sleeping on a bed, make sure you're not sleeping on metal, because as we know, metal conducts. So if there's any dirty electricity that's loose, that can come from wiring or Wi-Fi or the neighboring buildings, your bed can become a conductor, and it's going to conduct electricity. So please, stick to wood. And I can design beds that are designed with the music of the land, and it's actually designed with the frequency of the heart of the land. So you can get to sleep in the heart frequency of your land, and it's a very, very special experience.
What is the thing behind the bed, like not like right above the pillow? It's kind of a vertical.
Oh, that's a lamp. Oh, that's just a lamp.
Okay, I thought
That's
I thought maybe it was some kind of technology I didn't know about.
No, that's just a very beautiful lamp. No, so I'm mixing. So here I'm mixing up the ancient tech with a really nice lamp.
Right.
That's the beautiful part of the design. So
right.
Yeah, we want people to get super healthy, but also we can have great European design as well. So that's fine.
Yes.
This is another structure. So the labyrinth we talked about, in the same place, a year later, we came back and we built this structure. So most people will probably know about the golden ratio. They've heard of that, the part of sacred geometry
sequence. Right.
That's it. So we built one. This is a big Fibonacci spiral, as you can see from there, like that. Yep.
Beautiful.
And then we walked along and we dowsed, and we found marked along the spiral different places of the chakras, chakra system. And then so let's say here, let's go to heart. Can you see there? You see a heart? Yeah. And there's two circles. Each of those circles is the frequency of heart of the heart frequency of the land. So for example, I've got a ruler here. So this is like what this is 1 foot. Let's say once we do our calculations, the frequency of what is related to the heart of the land is 1 foot. Then the center one is 1 foot, and the outer one is doubled, so 2 foot in diameter. And so when you stand there, that point in the center, where right in the center, there's actually a point there that resonates with the heart of the land. But then we build these circles, which are then embodying the actual frequency of the land. So we're working both ways. And these points were not, we didn't choose them. They naturally arose. So there's a very special magic going on here, where part of the golden ratio then basically informs these points. There's still an awful lot of things to be discovered in the relationship between geometry and energy and the land. Yes, this is a really very, very special structure. You walk it and you balance all your chakras. Yeah, it's really cool.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. This is some design work. This is a structure. This is a yoga shala in Sri Lanka, and then this is showing how there's this vortex in the middle. So I put it located a really nice vortex. This is showing some of the underground water lines, and then also showing that here there's showing some of the dimensions. So essentially, each of the dimensions is then the music. So the frequencies can be then built into your structure. So actually, that the 4 posts can then act to activate a balance in the land. But then each of the dimensions, then this is a key thing. Like, instead of saying, okay, like I want that post to be 10 foot high. Yeah. Actually, I want that post to be the frequency of the throat chakra, because that's going to produce a particular effect. So all of the essentially, when I'm working with our architects, my dimensions are then frequencies. I know it's a bit of an abstract concept. Basically, I design with frequencies, but I'm designing with the frequencies of the land. And we do that, your structure, and that's another way of then making that structure accepted by the land.
Right.
We work with plants a lot as well, and so this is a layout show with the plants, where the plants are built around a central point. And so each of these, if you imagine each of these circles of plants is a frequency. When you sit in the middle, it's like having a float. Have you had a float tank?
Oh yes.
Yeah, it's the same feeling. There's this absolute stillness in the center.
I love that.
Yeah. So it's sort of like and because each of these plants has a every living thing has a biofield, a living field of different
toroid
frequencies.
field around it, right?
Yeah.
And they all are conscious, and they all have feelings, and you can feel that, and to me, plants are the frequency of love. So I feel their love. So I love having plants around me. It's unconditional love. It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we then give them more frequency, and their auras get bigger. And so then you then get to sort of sit within this field with all these super happy plants. And then you have this, I mean, it's a good experimental thing to do. Obviously, having a lot of plants, you need to have a space for it. But when it can be done, it's a really amazing experience to be in the center, this stillness. Yeah. And everything around you is alive. Yeah, it's really special.
Beautiful.
This is in design work in Spain. This is then working with a Spanish garden.
Nice pool.
Nice pool. Yeah, it's really hot there. This is more design work. This is like a Celtic roundhouse, working with forms and seeing how the structures then start to relate to the movements of the sun and the earth. This is a project in Costa Rica, where it's a 7-acre wellness village, and I'm looking at how all these different elements can then be connected together really thinking about regenerative farming and wellness and really connecting to the landscape. So this is starting to think about how we can start to live in a fully regenerative way. And then I'm consulting on this project, and then once we get a really great working model of all these structures and working and creating biological architecture that's fully natural, I will then come along and then start to build, bring the music into place, and really make the whole thing alive.
Yes. It would be wonderful to see a lot more of these
Yeah.
all over the place. Oh, wow.
Um,
Look at those
so
trees.
well, actually, they're not trees. They're little. So this is, they're not that big.
What?
So they're tropical. So
Oh, okay.
they're only about
Okay.
this big. Ha! They're not trees. Yeah, the stones are not that big. Yeah, this is this is a really special structure we built. It's called a constellation mandala, and this allows us. So this is
Hmm.
So here you see the plan here.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's the constellation of Vega. So what happens
Okay.
is that when you build this, you through resonance, you can then start to feel the energies of each planet. So the mapping, so we basically map the geometry of that constellation, in this case of Lyra on the land, and then you can then feel the energy qualities of that constellation. So
Wow.
you're Aquarius, so
Yes.
you could then have an Aquarius constellation
Mm.
mandala in your garden, and then you can go and start to
Interesting.
start to feel. So it's really really fun things can be done. This is some more working with more interior architecture, and this is an early stage piece of work. As much as I want to work with the sacredness, also I like to work with projects where there's to do wellness, but really natural materials and organic food. And then I can come along and say, okay, let's really bring all in the energies at this stage of the project. This is a house. Again, start like an early stage, starting to really work with the landscape, making sure everything's really connected to the earth. This is really interesting. This is quite near me. This is an existing property. This is a Victorian wall garden, and it's then starting to think about how we can develop the garden that's into a new place where we're looking at the food cycle, and then recognizing that we have a Victorian garden, then people can then come and eat and have a new restaurant where it's basically the food table is really key, but then we can add the music to it. Yeah, there we go.
Beautiful. Wow. Well, thanks. Thank you for showing me that and showing all of us that. It's incredible. That's really amazing work. Well done.
Thanks. Thanks.
I mean, how long did it take you to kind of come up with these kinds of things?
Well, each design
I mean,
or the
no, no.
training, the training.
Like the whole idea of doing this. Like, did it take years to come up with this idea of doing
Well,
this, or
well,
was it
well, no, I mean, it took like from that energy change point of view point to doing it, there was about 5 years. And then it
okay?
then it was about another 5 years, 6 7 or well, like 6 or 7 years of starting to do the training. My teacher was in France, then I brought him over, and then he essentially compiled 40 years of his knowledge into a 4 year training program. And
Wow.
I actually trained in the US because I was
Mm,
so busy running a design studio, I didn't have the time to bring him and have him in the UK and run the course. So
mm.
I ended up doing most of the training in Colorado, and then
Wow.
I've been doing it for 5 years, so professionally.
So when did you first say that you kind of woke up, or whenever you like actually had that experience where you suddenly, wanted to read everything
Mm.
and
That was
when did that happen?
2006. So I
Oh,
so,
so it's been a
yeah,
while. Yeah, it's been a long
yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah. So I did martial arts all the way through my life, and then I
Okay.
sort of kept coming back to it, and then it was this thing. I was in Sydney, and I decided I needed to find like a martial art that was going to basically sustain me and keep me healthy. So it was like, I was like, okay, Tai Chi is going to do it. And I found a Taiwanese master that could, that could do it and could fight and teach you how to fight with it, even though it's a 10-year thing. And I didn't want to beat anyone up. And like week one, I went to train with him, and then week two, he said, "All right, we're going to do the internal energy work." And this is a bit like, then it's sort of like, so it's, as I said at the beginning, it's like this. It's a bit like qigong, but it opens all the channels, and it's very, very specific, very advanced Taoist training that comes from Taoist alchemy to open the channels and allows you to basically draw energy into the environment to circulate it, and then to be able to send it out, and also lots of cool stuff that I didn't actually end up finishing because I sort of went off on the research journey. Like they had a way that you could build an energy field around the body, and it's called iron shirt. And you take if you get hit, the energy is then dissipated through the body, and like really cool stuff. But I didn't get that far, and I realized afterwards it was the martial arts for me that was like the thing that wherever part of my life, it was always, I was so deeply ingrained in it since I was 10 years old that it kept bringing me back. And it was that one point, and then I found that methodology that, and I went, so it was through a lot of people now it's it's plant medicine. For me, it was the energy work. And so a lot of my work now is then understanding the relationship between the energy body and the energy fields in the body and the land and architecture. And so I've been on a 10-year journey to start to understand what those relationships are and what those fields are. And so essentially there are these called torsion fields of subquantum spin particles that exist at radically fast speeds, faster than the speed of light, which propagate everywhere. And essentially the ancient builders were able to harness those energies to build their structures. And we've I've shown in my work, some of the work and the structures, how those structures can do that. For example, when in that first medicine wheel, that the very first project, we had 5 people one day. We had one person in the middle, we had one person in each direction, and then what happened was we were all essentially closed our eyes and then focusing on the person in the center. The medicine wheels aligned to true north, so it's aligned to the Earth's magnetic field. It's a powerful vortex in the middle, and then it's built then with harmonic geometry of the universe. So there's someone standing in the middle, and then the person standing there is a electromagnetic antenna, and then through the central channel from the crown to the perineum, this is an etheric tube which acts like a passive torsion field generator. And so all the spinning energy is going through, and then the vortex are very powerful. And that person's field then started to vibrate at such a high level that after about 3 or 4 minutes, their field reached a sort of a point that essentially a wave was sent out that was felt by everyone. So essentially it was like a very weak gravitational wave was able to be felt, that that resonance had built up to a point, and then it just expanded outwards, and we were sort of not pushed back. Well, yeah, some people felt pushed back, and so that's when we recognize that that technology of the wheel and the circle and the crossing, you've got really deep ancient understanding of high dimensional physics and the way that torsion fields propagate, and how they can be harnessed to allow connection to high dimensions, and to be able to then modulate, as you talked about, to be able to modulate the frequency balance and vitality of the land.
All right. That's very powerful. And it's probably very healing as well for that person.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and it's quite yeah, it's a powerful experience. So that circle in particular opens the throat
That throat
chakra.
chakra.
Yeah, yeah, and they can be different too, depending on its place, on depending on the location of the structure, its size, all the different factors. It can then have slight different effects. That one is in particular is going to open that up. And he said a portal. Yeah, essentially these structures are portals, and if it's designed correctly, and then it's used and also interacted with as well. So essentially there's a whole aspect to the way the earth energy lines move. There is so many different aspects of the earth energy grid, but some of the lines, some of the larger lines, which are essentially made of standing wave sound frequencies, can move across the landscape, and then when there are places of high vibration, of high vitality and high frequency, such as a wheel or a stone circle, they can be attracted to them. And then, but also, and if there are people then using those structures, and your intention, your prayers, your positivity, your love goes into them, it raises the vibration. So hence what happens if you have a holy place, you let's say you would have a place where there was a high level of sanctity, and then if there was a lot of spiritual practice undertaken there, its vibration would continue. And then over millennia, that place would become revered, and then maybe structures were built over there. But that energy point would then resonate, would then build that charge, and then more over time, more energy lines would be attracted to it. Then, oh, it feels really good there. And there's some there are some researchers that have then recognized that some of these large energy lines in the landscape can then move towards, for example, schools or children's playgrounds, because there's so much positive emotion. Yeah, so it's where there's that emotional, not intellectual, where there's that emotional content, that connection, and that's just school children. So that purity, those lines are attracted to that pure emotion.
That's so interesting because there's supposed to be a vortex in Sarasota and it's right next to a children's playground. So that I find that very interesting that you just said that. I never put that together. So how does one find like a line, an energy line that maybe they want to say they want to put a garden in their yard? Do they dowse for it? Is that what they do? Mm-hmm.
That's using one of these. That's the best way. Essentially, you walk along, and then it moves, and when you get a spin, and that's the vortex. Essentially, that's the science. That's the technology. The body, the rod's not doing it. You can do it. You can do it with a
A
pendulum as
pendulum.
well. Yeah, you
That's
can
what
do
I
it.
use. Yep.
Yeah, you can do a pendulum. Pendulum, the rod's doing the same thing. Essentially, it's
Mhm.
the body that is doing it. I teach dowsing, and it's really the best way to understand it is think of an old wristwatch, where no, not a digital one.
The
The
kind you have to
hands,
wind.
yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Mm,
so you were to wind. On the outside, you've got the hands.
mhm.
Inside the gears, you wind it. It's the gears inside that move the hands. So the
Right.
hands are the rod. The hands is the device, whether it's the rod or whether it's the pendulum.
Right.
It's our internal,
It's the energy.
it's us. Yeah, so basically we're an antenna. So, and some people can do it, with their body and feel. They haven't lost that ability, but
Mhm.
as we've moved through changes of generations, and the vibrational frequency of the earth changed, that ability for a lot of us gone away. That's why you have to use one of these. And so what happens is that through a process of moving between the parasympathetic nervous system and the muscles, the body then is able to pick up. So water is the classic example. So we're a lot of water. That's why water is the easiest thing to pick up on, because we're lots of water. And what
Mhm.
happens is that you move along, and then you go, okay, where's the water? And when you hit water, and it will then move. What's
Mm.
happening is that um, the rod actually moves from these tight, minuscule movements of the muscular system, but it is part of the nervous system. And then there is also a connection with, there's research been shown that for example, different points, if different acupuncture points are blocked, the dowsing potential can be blocked. One of the main ones is the third eye pineal gland, because there's magnetite within the pineal gland. So it's that magnetic material. And so obviously, so we've got multiple layers here. You've got the magnetic potential of the earth and magnetic potential of the body. If you're using a pendulum, I've got another one here. Yeah, if you're using a pendulum to ask questions, it's a slightly different thing, because you're not interacting specifically with a location. So if you're saying,
Right.
okay, I want to ask a question, we're asking the question of universal consciousness, then then the process is slightly different, because you're not interacting with a water line, for example. So yeah, so people want to find one, then then this is this technology is is pretty much unbeatable.
Yeah, very accurate. Wow, that's really fascinating. And is there anything else that you wanted to share with us while
Hmm.
your tensor
Hmm.
rods, tensor
Tensor
little
rings,
tensor
well,
tensor
lots of
rings?
different things. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think that this is a tensor ring. We're going to be doing some research on these this year. So essentially, I think that the key thing here is that like some people, so let's go back to this. Everyone's familiar with these devices, and
Mhm.
and then Wilhelm Reich discovered this and was put in jail for this, and
Mm.
killed it, and also most likely killed in jail
Mm.
for healing people with cancer. With this understanding of subtle energy, and there's been about 40, 50 years of incredible research done through the Russian scientists to understand that this high dimensional frequency is called torsion, and so these guys are working with that. So to our tensor ring, some people may be aware of these. An amazing American geobiologist called Slim Sperling worked out that if you take a length, and this is called a sacred, so these you use sacred cubits and other measures. So before I was talking about measurements, the frequencies, the measurement of this copper wire is a frequency. And then he worked out if you turn it around on itself and double it back, it makes an infinity loop. So a figure eight, a lemniscate shape, that's a figure eight doubled onto itself. So it's actually comes back to a circle and then soldered. It then also creates a field effect, which is the same as this guy. So you can use this to structure your water and your food. And also I'm doing a lot of research with this guy. So everyone knows about. So here we have a pyramid, and this is a pyramid as well. So this is a very particular one. I mean, to go into this it's probably another call. This is also this is a whole other call. We're going to do a lot of research on these this year. So this is a shape that relates to the golden ratio, also discovered by a team of Russians, and this has incredible effects. So that this then creates an energy field through the center, which is the same as the other device we've spoken about. So essentially, I'm going to be investigating this work this year, because this has incredible effects on balancing the environment and on health and so many incredible things. I think we should do a talk about this, because these are just amazing.
Yes.
The Giza pyramid. This actually isn't Giza pyramid. Actually, this is slightly too high. The Giza pyramid that everyone knows has particular qualities. This is a higher frequency device, and can do amazing things. We've worked with one of these on the farm and put plants inside, and doubled the rate of growth, and doubled the rate of what we're able to output from using these. So essentially, what's happening is that these devices are able to harness subtle energy, which the Russians call torsion. Sometimes it's called scalar. So again, I'm sure that's come up in some of your podcasts. So essentially, what happens is that the potential of these extremely fast superluminal spin particles are able to be harnessed through this shape, and this relates to the golden ratio, which is in our bodies and defines all of life. And so all of these devices, which is this modern research, is essentially they're working with these torsion fields, which is the foundation of my work. So for sort of the grids we've talked about around my structures, that grid, the oldest one is found in a place called Cresciuno in Brittany in France. It's 4,000 years old. It's a rectangle, and that rectangle basically is a torsion generator, it's a torsion field generator. So that's 4,000 years old, and it's essentially doing the same work as this. So we have a tradition of extremely advanced builders who recognized the understanding between latitude and high dimensional frequencies and the planets, at least 4,000 years ago. We know because of the more ancient structures 10, 15, 20, 25,000 years ago, every year, we're finding, the new archaeologists, the people who are really realizing that like the whole story of that we've been told is basically a lie, that there's so much more out there, so much has been hidden. And so I'm basically looking at the energy science of those builders, and then how we can then use them to create structures that are going to heal ourselves. I mean, basically, going into the structures that are going to be able to raise our vibration, using sacred sound, how we can then utilize all this old technology to be able to enhance our protect ourselves. We talked about the cloud busting technology in terms of chemtrails, but also then how we can then protect our environments from EMFs and those really pernicious ionizing frequencies. And then what can we do to be able to raise our vibration with this sort of structure? How we can really maximize the potential of our DNA, protect our genes, and then be able to sort of live to the maximum potential in our lives. And so my work is about working with people that want to create those spaces. I've got a big project that I'm working on in the Azores. It's a 80 acre site where we're going to be creating a big facility to be able to build healing centers with quantum healing and using all the sacred geometry, all the structures, and working with the land and the soil in a pristine ecosystem. So there are now people recognizing that we have to then go back to the land with organic farming and everything being regenerative ecosystems, but then utilizing these technologies to be able to allow us to live at the highest level. So, for example, electroculture is a perfect example of that.
I was just going to ask you about that. You read my mind.
Yeah. That's essentially that's taking copper. And here's an electroculture spiral. Basically, you take your copper, you wind it around it. You've then got a golden ratio spiral. So basically, this is 72-degree cone. It's in golden ratio proportion. So you're going to get some of the effects that you get from this, and it's in a cone. So a cone is a infinite-sided pyramid. So basically, so this is a pyramid.
Where would you get a hold of these?
I can give you some link to this. People like in the UK, you can get these on Etsy. This one came from this was 3D printed. So you get a perfect spiral. We can give you some links for these. So what it means is you're getting a perfect spiral. I mean, obviously, I'm sure a lot of your listeners are already using electroculture, but it's taking it to the next level. Let's use this. You use this. All of these things, it comes under the name of sort of shape power. It's recognizing that these forms create these fields. So this, you take a copper, wrap it around a stick. Essentially, you've got an antenna, but you can then maximize it with next level shape and form.
Absolutely, and it works very well. I've seen so many people talk about this. So,
yeah.
Thank you for coming on and for sharing all of your knowledge with us and for all of this information.
My pleasure. And what I'm going to end with something.
Oh,
I think you said at the beginning. So, if people want to work with me, I have an online way of working. It's called Home to Sanctuary, and I think you said you're going to link that.
Absolutely.
If anyone wants to work with me, in the
description. Yep.
Basically, I'm able to work remotely and help people and look at their places. So you said, how can they find those vortexes? Well, I can do it remotely. We can find where the bad places are. You can avoid those. Find the really good places, really great high vibration spots for your homes, and then I can then help people through to really understand the whole energetic quality of their space and raise the vibration. And anyone from any of your callers, if they want to engage with me, they can drop me an email. And on website, there's a page there. And if they say the word, should we say potentials? And then they'll get 10% discount. So I'd love to
very
then
nice.
to be able to help them, and to be able to raise the vibration of their spaces, because this is all this is about. It's like, there's an awful lot of stuff out there that's not really beneficial to health. We want really high vibration spaces.
Absolutely. Thank you. And so I just want to say to everyone out there, again, you can reach Mark. I'm going to put the links in the description if you want to reach out to him for any reason. And also just everyone, this is a great way to just be healthy and to promote health, and it's got a lot of potential. So I had to throw that in there.
Nice,
And
nice link.
and again, everyone, thank you for promoting, for sharing and coming on potentials, and also everyone for liking and subscribing, and for leaving comments. If you leave a comment on this, I will absolutely answer it, and I will encourage Mark to, if he watches, if you don't mind watching yourself again.
Of
Sometimes
course.
I don't like looking at myself, but on my videos. But yes, everyone, I just want to encourage you to comment on the videos, because I really enjoy that, and I really like interacting with everyone. And also thank you for coming on to my Patreon potentials podcast on patreon.com, and for supporting me. I really do appreciate that, and thank you so much. And everyone, will be I'm sure having Mark back, if you would like to.
I'd
When you
love
have
to come back. Yeah, we can come back and show
absolute
you. We can come back and show you some of the research we're doing this year.
I would love to see that, because everything sounds so amazing, and I really love what you're doing. So I really appreciate you coming on, and it's been an honor to have you. So um, we'll be
Thanks.
looking forward to that.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. And everybody, we will see you next time. Ciao for now.
Bye.